Oh shit, here we go again.
Low, low, man. Low, low, man.
You like contracts, right? You're a contract guy.
I read contracts instead of conventional pornography, yes.
And they're still fucking nerds.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Legal Mindset here from small to big, and this is this is the show where we teach you to be your own judge. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, live in Asia, scuffing it late today. Yeah, boy, we're doing it. I just finished recording a fast facts version of this video, so that'll be up afterwards for those that want a abbreviated version. I didn't do one for the last Foodie Beauty video, but I realized that a lot of people that are in the girl world community like the shorter videos, and there's a lot of shorter videos and content from the reaction channels. So I want to say that'll be for you guys. And if you enjoy the shorter version, you can watch that. It'll come out after this video. So all you have to do to be redirected to that one is hang out here and you'll be able to see that one, which is very brief. My PP is mostly good in that one. I scuffed it a little bit of scuff on the PP, but I did whip it out pretty quick. So, you know, when you whip it out quick, sometimes you make some mistakes, but yeah. Okay, I need to get my pronunciation. Girl. Oh, instead of I, right? You guys need to teach me how to pronounce that correctly. But anyways, it's good to see everybody here. Welcome. We already have over 1,000 people in the chat, which is awesome. And it's good to see everybody here in the house. Now, I will admit, I was in the realm of doing more research on Foodie Beauty before this stream. Now, this news is like breaking news, which is why I'm covering it. I really jumped into this like without knowing anything about it. And I know some people on the internet, they actually, I had about a dozen messages apologizing to me where people said, I am so sorry for what you're about to step into. I am so sorry we did this to you. I understand. Don't worry. I have stepped in a lot of crazy worlds, whether it was covering, Depp versus Heard, or covering VTubing, covering IRL nuisance streamers, and now with Foodie. It is really fun to me to come into a community that has so much lore and so much backstory and to be able to learn it. I enjoy learning the backstory. And right now I'm just going to show you guys. I was just starting the Mr. Snowflake documentary series. So I have that pulled up. I want to show you the Carfax here. So this was like highly recommended to me. So I just like was starting this, but I really haven't had a chance to get to it yet, but I am going to watch all of this. I promise you. So I'm going to be caught up on the lore when I get a chance. I only have about an hour or two to like do extra research every day other than the topic I'm immediately covering. But I will get on that and I'm going to watch that. And I'm going to get educated, guys. So thank you for recommending that one. It looks very well produced so far. So I'm going to get into that one. And that was recommended by many of the reaction channels, many people who email me. And everybody who's contacted me has been super kind so far. So I don't know what anybody's talking about, crazies or whatever. Everybody who's contacted has been kind and very nice and reasonable. And if there's any misunderstanding, of course, I can clear that up. I'm very happy to do that. But it appears I am indeed in this feet first already because it appears she has already watched my video and has responded to it. So many of you, and I imagine that most of you that are watching this video, I have probably about 40% or 30% of my dedicated followers that follow me on any topic. And you guys are the OGs and I love you. People like, for example, King Lugia, who gifted 1 membership here. Thank you, King Lugia. I've got my OGs that watch me no matter what. But I know that a lot of you are in the girl world verse. So I know that a lot of you don't know anything about me, and you might want to understand the way I cover things and the way I deal with things. And I try to really explain that while we have fun in the chat, and while I do read every super chat, including ones that make jokes or whatever else, I don't respond to ad hominem, and I don't engage in like a name calling thing or anything else like that. So I know a lot of times when I engage with new communities and creators, people often try to like provoke me into a response or like pick at me or whatever. And I usually completely ignore that, or I laugh at that. So I will, in the spirit of this is the first time that I've done this in Girl World with Chantal, I'm going to play a little clip that somebody sent me on Twitter. And I think this was meant to make me angry or poke at me, but I was just laughing the entire time. And I hope you guys laugh too. So let me share this with you guys, this little clip here, which was from, I guess, one of her streams recently. So let's watch this, guys.
I feel sorry for the boat, the tugboat. Well, I feel sorry for anyone who comes into contact with you, buddy, because you have a comb over friggin' Widow's Peak that from like out of this world, buddy. I'm kidding. Sorry, my sass is coming back. Yes, great bro. Why do I always make fun of everybody? Maybe I am a bitch.
So I actually thought this was funny. So obviously, what I laughed at that because to me, it's like, oh, you watched my video. Awesome. I love it when the people I cover watch my videos. That like confirms that you watched my video, which is great. And people are saying she might have been in chat or she might have been watching. I love it. Just like I love when I cover Ramsey Khalid Ismail, Johnny Somali. He watches all my videos. I love that. Right. I know Vitaly supporters watch all my videos. I love that. It's great. It's fantastic. So I am happy. That was actually great confirmation that she's watching my video. So cool. Glad you're watching this, Foodie, and hopefully you take something away from this today. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you're educated and entertained by my video. She watches it all. Yeah, there we go. So before we get into the PP, because we do have a PP today, and I'm gonna make it big right now and show you guys my PP. Here it is. Right. Here's my PP. All right. Yeah, that's good. That's nice, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Before we get into the PP, let's answer some super chats. Bronwyn says, I'm not a nerd, just a geek. Just saying. Good morning. I know people like to divide that, but it really doesn't matter to me. I don't care whether you're a nerd or a geek. You are welcome here. Fully welcome here. Big Buddhist for Two says, big PP energy. Pog. That's right. Shout out. Tony for 6.99 Canadian says, when you whip out your PP too quickly, sometimes it gets scuffed. Oh, definitely do not want to scuff your people.
No. Wait.
Artemis says we came after Fast Facts, so we're the sloppy seconds. I feel so used. Well, Fast Facts always comes first, but then it comes last. Marcine says, I'm also new to Girl World. Hold me, chat. I think chat's been awesome. I haven't had any problems with anybody. I think everyone's been good. Like I said, guys, there's only really, and guys and gals, there's only really simple rules. Don't break YouTube TOS. Don't spam. No caps. That's pretty much it. It's not hard to follow, right? Don't spam. No caps. That's it. Nick Cross, and also no doxing or anything else like that. Now, today we are going to talk about a topic that involves location. My general rule on this is I do not reveal people's specific location. I will not talk about where they are exactly, their home address with the zip code and all that stuff. However, the country they're in and often the province they're in is legally relevant. So I'm going to talk about our location as it is legally relevant. I do not support doxing. I think it's a bad thing in terms of like giving away people's address with the intent for someone to harass them. I don't do that right on my channel, but I know people do it. I know people have that information out there and whatever. I just don't put that in the chat either. That's another rule. Nick Ross says, I'm only a year into the girls myself. It's wild. Lori, becoming a member, welcome. The Scuff McGuff says, much love from Okinawa. Lala, man. I wish I could stay up for this. Have a wonderful night. Hey, good evening there in Okinawa. Hope you're doing well. Big Buddha says, I'm just here for the legal teas of all kinds. Well, that's good. We have a lot of legal stuff today. Neko Girl says a response already. The only thing she's fast at, other than eating. Oof. Scruff McGuff gifted 10 illegal mindset memberships. Thank you so much. Secret Squirrel says Chantel is always watching. Well, hi Chantel. How are you doing tonight? You doing good? We're gonna talk about some good food tonight. Garrett Griffin says, looks at vids, smiles, nods, backs away, reaches for holy water. Fork Sniffers Anonymous says, also recommend Toad McKinley documentaries on Foodie that will help with the lore. Thank you. I will check that out. Thor says, I try to have love for everyone. One love. Thank you, Thor. And Spider Bro says, for a second, I thought she was going to eat the camera because she was looking at it. And Foxy Red for 10 illegal mindset memberships. Thank you so much. Given all those haters.
Emotional damage.
Thank you for that. All right. So I think we've got through everything there. Let me go backstage. We're caught up. Okay, good news. Okay, let's get into what's happened. Shall we chat? Oh, and also Thor says, Kane is a good dude. One of my favorite streamers. Cool. All right. So let's get what happened. So obviously she was facing some heat in Kuwait. And obviously last time we talked about the fact that she could very well face consequences in Kuwait, legal consequences. So this is a timeline which I am going to credit the humble Kiwi farmers, even though I think this is a Twitter post, but I got it off the farms. I'm going to admit that fully. This was her log of her visa run. So this, to me, looking at this schedule, and I'm making the presumption this was accurate. I'm going to make the presumption this was accurate. This, to me, looks like somebody who is doing visa runs on a tourist visa, because she's doing stuff like going back to Canada occasionally, going to Qatar, going to Thailand, going to Canada again, going to Thailand again. So she's taking these trips, which look to me like visa runs. As an attorney that does immigration law and as somebody who's very familiar with that, I help people relocate abroad all the time. Many people try to stay in Thailand by doing visa runs, and there is a limit to that. At a certain point, they do crack down on you. But it looks like she was trying to kind of stay within the parameters of what Kuwait would allow her to do. But it seems that based on information that we have here, she has now left Kuwait and is now back in Canada. Someone asked, what is a visa run? That's a good question. So let me answer this real quick. A visa run is what an individual living in another country on a tourist visa that only lasts 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. Let's use an example of Japan or Korea. Japan or Korea, if you come into that country, you get presumptively 3 months of time. However, what they allow you to do, and it's not publicly stated, but you can do this, is you can go to the country for 3 months, go somewhere else for a couple days, and then come back to the country and get another 3 months. So effectively, you're getting like 6 months there. Now, most modern countries with digital systems will limit this at about 6 months or maybe limit it at 9 months a year. There's a point at which they see you're living there and you should be on a more long-term visa, such as having employment, family status, such as being a spouse. That's one way you could be there. You could have a business. You could be a retiree. You could be an investor. You could be a digital nomad. There's lots of options. And that's what I typically help people with when they're making the decision on what to do if they're coming to Asia, countries like Korea, Japan, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines. I typically help people with that. And if you want help on that, you can hit me up. My email for that is goeastgentleman@gmail.com. And I find it very interesting to pick which category where you go. But the visa run is going in and out of a country to essentially renew your time in that country. And it appears she was doing that. That appears that that's what she was doing for a while. So she's back in Canada and appears she's self-deported. So self-deportation is essentially taking yourself out of the country before you are deported by the country. And this has become very popularized. If you're an American, you know that I think there was a periods of time in the recent past where immigration officials said, hey, you can self-deport, you can remove yourself from the country or report here and remove yourself and we'll buy you a plane ticket back, etc. It appears she's self-deported. Now, I don't think Kuwait paid for her. I think she paid for her own ticket out, but it appears she got out of the country before she was deported. Someone mentioned Gino, Johnny Somali's cameraman. Yeah, he kind of self-deported too. It's when you remove yourself before they remove you. And that appears that happened. Now, where is she? She's in Canada. Now, I like these images. I had to get a couple meme images here because it's Canada and the memes are great. I just love the fact that their national animal is a beaver. It's just really hilarious. This one I think is a good one. It's a really good image of the beaver and the beaver and the eagle going at it. This was also a good one. I do like this one. Anytime there's an Aboot reference with Canada, I die laughing. I can't say this one because I don't want to fill the swear jar. It's too early in the stream to fill the swear jar, but a boot and find out, right? A boot and find out. But no, she's in Canada, right? So less Mimi. She's back in the glorious Maple Leaf country. Now, to be clear, Canada is not really strict when it comes to non-COVID time border inspection. So a lot of people were wondering, are they going to like nab her at the border for stuff she did in the past? And no, the answer is no. They're not going to in Canada generally, unless it's a very severe crime, right? Once again, something like a murder or arson or grand theft. They're not going to see you at the border and haul you off and toss you in a cell. That's not their typical procedure. They typically will let you in and then whatever legal processes will resume. And we'll talk about that because we're going to get to the consequences of her coming back to Canada, particularly if she stays there for a long time. But she wouldn't have been stopped at the border. And this is a misnomer. Many people believe that in many countries, even the United States, that you're going to be hauled off at the border if you come back. Typically, that's not the case unless you've got some sort of warrant out for your arrest or there's something fairly severe waiting for you. So how was she outed? And what I find is really funny is she's talked about being in Canada, apparently, on her several streams. But what gave her away in Foodie beauty fashion, in true Foodie beauty fashion, what gave her away was not her talking about it, but indeed food. It was indeed Billy K's. To me, this was the most convincing evidence. And it's so picture perfect that Foodie beauty was given away by food. And by the way, this food looks good. Like tonight after this stream, I'm hungry. I now am going to eat a hamburger because I had to look at this because this does look good. And I kind of want some poutine too, because frankly, poutine is delicious. I'm not going to lie. Poutine is delicious. Canada wins on that one. I do enjoy poutine. The hot dog I could probably take or leave, but the burger does look good. So the problem with ordering food is when you order food and you order that food and it's only provided in a single country, because as you see, and as the location that she talked about being in Canada and being in a certain city, she kind of doxed her general area in the Cornwall area, because Billy K's is, of course, right here. You see Billy K's right here next to the Wendy's here, over here in Canada, right? Right over here. Probably the one she went to right near the Elect Inn in the Alview Duluth, Cornwall, right? Hotel Classic Comfort. So she probably ordered from this one. I don't know whether she delivery or did pickup, but it obviously puts her in Canada, right? So the food puts her back in the Maple Leaf state. The picture does look good. It does look good. Whoever says it doesn't look good, I know what you're saying. By the way, I did have a poll in the chat. Do you think Foodie is smart for fleeing Kuwait? 43% says she's smart, 35% accidentally, and 22% said no. So actually, most of you think Foodie is smart, whether accidentally or not. But I am going to put up a poll now on the burger, because does the Billy K's look delicious? I want to know. I really want to know. Chat needs to tell me whether this looks delicious or not, because I indeed think it looks delicious. That's my personal opinion. But chat, you can be the judge. Octera says, if you visit Canada, you need to try Swiss Chalet. I will. I have not been there, but I'll try it. Kate Kerbal says, is she Putin herself? I see what you did there. legally in harm's way being back in Canada. We're going to talk about that. Friday Bruce Dream says she doxed, healed all the time and done others. Yeah, well, it happens. And once again, doxing other people doesn't make it okay to dox them. And you know, there's people that do, and I'll say this about myself. There's people that have targeted me and you know, said nasty things about me and done nasty things about me and said things about my family and other stuff like that and said nasty things. That doesn't justify you doing it back. And just doing it back feeds into the negative cycle that they perpetuate. And, you know, on this channel, I try to cultivate an objective, while fun and entertaining environment that's more positive, right? We're more positive. We're lighthearted. We're fun here on Legal Mindset. So I don't participate in any of that. And I try to stay away from the tit for tat negativity stuff. But you know what? When I see good food, I got to admit it looks good. It looks good. Megan Daffy said, did you get the videos I tweeted you? Maybe. I got tweeted a lot of things. I'm not going to lie. I got tweeted a lot of things. But let's continue here with the presentation. A lot of people have been asking me a question, and this is a question that came up on many of the forums, on the forums, I think Reddit, elsewhere, where people were talking about extradition. And I thought this was a really good opportunity to provide some education on extradition and to say, okay, well, a lot of people are talking about extradition meaning removing someone from one country and sending them to another, and extradition between Kuwait and Canada, right? And the potential for, hey, could she be sent back to Kuwait to face justice and, you know, go to court there? And I want to get into that because I think it's a really good legal question. It's very educational for everybody. So let me talk about this. First of all, there's three reasons why she won't be extradited. The first is Canada has no formal extradition treaty with Kuwait, and neither does the United States for that matter. Now, so you understand, an extradition treaty is an agreement between countries where the countries say, hey, if you have a criminal, we'll send them to you. And if we have a criminal that's your guy, that's your citizen, we'll send them back to you. So US and Canada. So the US says, look, if we have Canadian criminals in the US, we'll send them to Canada. And Canada says vice versa. Yeah, if we have a Canadian criminal and they're in the US, you know, that you'll send them back, we'll send you the Americans. If there's an American in Canada, we'll send them back. That's an extradition treaty. Now, an extradition treaty is not required for you to send people back. You can also just have a meeting of ambassadors or diplomats that meet and say, hey, we want this guy. Even though we don't have a treaty with you, well, let's negotiate. Let's go to the bargaining table and let's see what it takes to bring them back. And that's how people like, for example, Brittany Griner or others can be traded and brought back through extensive diplomatic negotiation between countries. It doesn't require a agreement. And there are instances where bilateral extraditions happen without a treaty. But here's the big problem with that, is that Kuwait, as well as many countries, have what's called a dual criminality requirement. A dual criminality requirement. What that means is that the crime must be a crime in both countries. So the crime, for example, of murder is a crime in the US and a crime in Canada. So if there's a murderer that flees the US to Canada, Canada will extradite them because both of them are criminals. That's a crime in Canada, murder, and it's a crime in the US. However, here's the problem with Foodie. She's in trouble for donations. That is not necessarily a crime in Canada. What she did is not necessarily a crime in Canada. There's not an analogous one-to-one law that they can say, yeah, that's a crime there as well. Not one-to-one. There might be something they could try to say, but it'd be really difficult argument to say that it's also a crime there. It probably is not a crime in Canada based on what I know. Once again, I'm an American lawyer, not a Canadian lawyer. I don't pretend to be. But as far as I know, that is not a law in Canada. So that's one issue with that. Beyond that, the process costs a lot of money. Extradition, even without a treaty, requires a lot of human resources, time, money to execute. They're not going to do that for Foodie. Foodie is not, the Lord of War. She's not a celebrity. She's not somebody that they're going to want to spend a bunch of money on. Now, I know that may hurt somebody's feelings, and maybe Foodie might be hurt by that. I'm sorry, Chantel. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You're not big enough of a celebrity for them to pay for you. Not big enough. She's not big enough. If she was bigger, maybe, but she's not that big. So if there a certain period of time, she was a certain level of largeness, she might get extradited, but she's not that large. She's not that large, guys. I know you're going to disagree with me. By the way, does Billy K's look delicious? 61% of you agree. Only 39% of you are liars, are dirty liars who said no. 61% in the poll, 1,000 votes, 61% agree. It does look delicious. I do want to eat that now. So let's continue here. Countries weigh the cost of extradition against the severity of the crime. And at the end of the day, the crime itself is the last reason why. It's unclear whether she's even going to be convicted of that. Kuwait may not even convict her. They may not even go through with that. Now they could, and we're going to talk about that, particularly in relation to her husband next, because I want to, or partner next. We'll get into that. They could perhaps have something involving that, but with her, they may not even hold her criminally liable. And oftentimes, and I see this with people here in Asia all the time, if it is a minor crime, oftentimes if they flee the country is happy to let them go. And what they typically do is they put them on a list for immigration. And if they ever try to come back in, they can block them and they can keep them out. But typically they don't go through all the work because it's much easier. Just give their name over to immigration, maybe block them or hassle them when they come through, but not to go through the whole legal process. It takes time, money, and investment, and they got better things to do with their legal system. And once again, I'm not trying to block for Foodie here. I'm just trying to be honest with how countries operate. And I see this on a regular basis, including with people I know and people I've seen in cases I've covered. I see this often abroad, especially as an American attorney dealing with immigration. It's very, very prevalent, unfortunately. And I do think this should be changed. I do think that countries should have a process to actually convict them, because I think that can have ramifications in other countries and block these people from going to other countries. I think they should go through with it, but I'm being honest, they typically don't. Hold on. Let's answer a couple super chats. Then we're going to continue to the next one about the consequences. But let's get some super chats. Melissa said for 2,000 Indonesian rupiah, answered no, but purely because it's too much for me. That's fine. To each his own. Kerbal said, sorry about the poutine joke, eh? Bronwyn says, Omegan does really good videos on her, and Amber Lynn Reed. He has live streams afternoon, so glad you have both streams. Cool. Well, good luck to Omegan. I'll check out those videos. Guys have been very grateful and awesome. Once again, people trying to warn me about the Goral World community. You guys have been awesome. So I have no problem with anybody here. So it's been great, and I'm willing to check out other stuff when I have time. Like I said, I'm still starting the Mr. Snowflake documentary. So let me finish that first, and I'll move on to other stuff. But thank you, guys. Tatsumi said maybe size-wise, why she's too big. Well, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about clout. Farrah Fiasco, thanks for doing an update. And Farrah, thank you for the information. Farrah helped me out with some of the information behind the scenes. So thank you, Farrah, for helping out with that. Really appreciate that. Razorwire Piercing says, so you're saying the seriousness of her crimes doesn't have enough weight behind them to justify extradition? Yeah, they don't weigh enough. If only they weighed more. Can they weigh more? Chat. Is it possible to weigh more? I'm going to put that in the chat. I'm putting the chat. Can Foodie weigh more? It's a yes or no question. If Foodie can weigh more. The interpretation of that question, I will leave up to your interpretation, chat. Thor said, would you kill people if it was legal? Well, that, first of all, it's not legal. So that's not even a question I'm going to entertain. And also that's against YouTube TOS. So be careful there, Thor. But I'll say this. Just because something legal doesn't mean you should do it, even if it is legal, right? So there it goes. And just because something legal doesn't mean it's moral, right? There's many things that are legal, but they're immoral. And oftentimes being a really shitty person is legal, but it's not moral. Same thing in many countries with being any sort of phobe or ist. It's not necessarily illegal, but it can be moral. It can be morally wrong, shitty, etc. Right? Billy Aoki for 5 Singapore says, Kuwait probably can't afford to feed her. Kuwait has plenty of money. Kuwait has a lot of money, actually. Lily SC says, for 45 Danish krona, could you give insight into PayPal TOS when breached with friends and family member when it's goods and service? Well, to me, PayPal, and people have alleged this, they said that she used friends and family when she shouldn't. If PayPal finds out about that and PayPal is informed of that, as somebody who was a corporate counsel, if they were informed of that, they would just terminate her account. They didn't really care. They terminate accounts for nothing. I know people that have had accounts on PayPal terminated for like crypto related stuff that was totally legit, but just because it was related to crypto, they terminated the whole account, or people whose eBay stuff looks suspicious and they terminate the account. So PayPal terminates pretty easily. So she's very lucky if she doesn't get her TOS. The TOS weren't violated there. And PayPal doesn't take any action. I'm sure that there's folks that have informed PayPal, but that is something that they can do under their TOS if they feel it was violated. Well, Jeff for 5 says, I think Foodie would break the scales of justice. Oof. Okay. Let's talk about Foodie's consequences here. So what is going to happen to her? What's going to happen to Foodie? First of all, I think she's going to get blacklisted in Kuwait. I think Kuwait, whether they do it through the legal process or not, I think they're going to blacklist her, which means she probably won't be able to come back to Kuwait. She's probably not going to be welcome to Kuwait. And so, yeah, I think that's going to be that to me is the layup in terms of the consequences. And some of you may say that's not enough. And that's one of the problems with cases that are foreign. Is that oftentimes the blacklisting from the country, especially if it's a country that someone wouldn't normally go to, it's not really a big deal. It's not like being blacklisted out of the United States or out of all of Europe or something else where someone might go often for business or whatever else. If a Canadian was blacklisted from the United States, that is probably a big deal because they probably would have to go to the United States at some point, and that would cause issues, even logistical issues, because many flights that go abroad from Canada might stop in the United States. Same thing if a Mexican citizen got blacklisted from the United States. Might be a big issue. So that could be a thing that might come down, and I would say the probability of that is fairly high, whether it's an official or unofficial blacklist. So they can just do that. Remember, countries have sovereign power, and they can just say, hey, yeah, we're just going to say no to her next time. There's another streamer. He was called World of T-Shirts. You can look him up. He was bounced out of Dubai, not for anything he did in Dubai, but for his behavior abroad. So they looked at his behavior abroad. They said, we do not want you in Dubai. And they removed him from that country. They did not allow him to exit, to come out and, enjoy Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. They said, nope, move on. We don't want you here. Right. And that is fully within their power. So I think that Foodie very well may get that. Now, here's the issue with his partner. Now, based on everything that chat has told me, and I am trusting chat here. I am trusting chat. And chat is sometimes wrong, but chat usually is right here. From everything that I get from chat, it appears that she may not be legally married. And I think the presumption that I am going to make is that she is not legally married, that she was either married through not a questionably legal method or not married at all. It was just a performative marriage, right? And she was using a tourist visa, right? Now, here's the problem. Oftentimes when you go into a country and you're on a temporary visa, like a tourist visa, or you're there as a spouse, even as a dependent, you have to list somebody who's responsible for you. And oftentimes there has to be a responsible party. Maybe even you left their address with immigration. So that person that was responsible for you, the responsible party, can suffer consequences. In some countries, in fact, I remember when this was required in Russia and other places, you have to have somebody literally vouch for you. So if you come in that country and you mess around, they're going to be punished for your bad behavior, like a sponsor, right? So it is possible if Salah was on any of her paperwork or associated with any of that, or, had any information there, he could face some consequences. At the very least, he might be questioned, right? At the very least, right? Might be questioned by authorities. Now, that doesn't mean he's unsafe. I'm not saying he's going to go get the death penalty or anything like that. I'm just saying he may be hassled, he may be bothered. And if they found it problematic enough because he is a non-citizen of Kuwait, they could remove him. They could deport him. And once again, I've said this before, as a non-citizen, you have no absolute right to be there. They can deport you if they want to, if Kuwait feels it's severe enough. I don't know whether Kuwait will determine whether that's severe enough or not. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll get really mad about it. And they'll say, look, this woman who's an influencer, she put mud on her face. She embarrassed our country by fleeing and not facing the consequences. So we're going to have somebody related to her or associated with her face the consequences. And frankly, in Kuwait, based on their record, they don't have a lot of sympathy for these cases. They're not as sympathetic. They tend to be pretty proactive on deporting and removing folks. So I think that if his name is there, and people are saying his name was listed, his name was there, I think he could face some consequences. Now, I don't think, and this was a question I believe that Joshua Moon asked, which is there any way he gets into Canada? If they're not legally married, I don't see any way this guy's getting into Canada other than trying some really crazy asylum refugee thing. But I mean, it would be a really crazy plan try to get this guy into Canada. So it appears that their meetups, if there are meetups in the future, will have to be in a third party country that allows him to enter as well as allows Chantel to enter and not in Kuwait. So the future of that relationship, very interesting. Because I do not think that will be able to commence in Canada unless there was some sort of actual legal marriage. Once again, if she produces legal paperwork that proves this wrong and shows a marriage certificate or whatever else, and proves this was a fully legitimate legal marriage, I'll correct myself here and I'll change my assessment. But it's not easy, even when you're legally married. I'll give an example for U.S. citizens. Oftentimes, for U.S. citizens, for immigration, when you're married and you marry someone, it could take a year, 2 years, even 3 years for that paperwork to be finalized and you to get legal green card status or legal admission to that country. So it could take years for her to get processed into Canada, him to get processed in Canada, even if it was legal and even if it was happened. So I think that is something very interesting for those that are following this, for those that are interested in this. People are talking in the chat. There's a Syrian whatever. I really don't need to do an analysis deeply on his Syrian passport or where he can go with the Syrian passport. Once again, I think that the problem is he has a relatively weak passport, whatever passport he has. So they're going to need to really look at the countries and see where they can go. There's a passport strength rating. And actually, let me show you guys. This is actually a little handy tool. If you guys ever want to use this, you can go over to, let's see here. I'll do this kind of live here. Let's put in Canada. Where's Canada? Where's Canada? Let's put in Canada and hold on. C is for Canada. Let's do Canada. Boom. And let's compare that to, let's say, Syria. Where's Syria? And let me throw in Egypt here. Why not? Let me just throw in Egypt as a comparison. Okay. So I'm going to show you guys. This is really cool. It's called Passport Index. If you ever want to use this, you should use this. It's really cool for comparing passports. It's a really awesome website. And this does a comparison to the strength of your passport. So here's Canada. Canada has a really relatively strong passport in 170 countries, which they have entry to. Both visa-free or visa on arrival, which is relatively easy. So they have a lot that they can go to without having to get permission. Syria, this is Syria here. This is Syria. Syria has a super weak passport, ultra weak passport. This is not a good passport. This is like what I would call a trash tier passport. Egypt isn't really good either. So you can see they're going to have to go through this list and find places to go. Okay, let's find a couple countries for them to meet up, guys. Let's set the romance here. Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. They can meet up in Ivory Coast. Ooh, lovely Cote d'Ivoire. Ooh, Dominica. They can meet up in Dominica. How about Equatorial Guinea? Ooh, that's lovely. Gabon, that's in Africa. How about Guinea-Bissau? Haiti. Oh, Haiti. They could have a lovely Haitian escape. That would be great. Over in Haiti. See where else they can go. Kenya. They can go to Kenya. Lebanon. Lesotho. Ooh, Lesotho. Really kicking country, Lesotho. Macau. Actually, Macau's interesting. Madagascar, Malawi, Malaysia, Maldives. How about Micronesia? That's over here on the Asian side. Mozambique, Nigeria, Palestinian. Oh, they can meet up in Gaza. They could have a Gaza Strip honeymoon. Gaza Strip honeymoon. Or the West Bank. How about Palau? How about Rwanda? Hotel Rwanda. That'd be great. Seychelles. Spain. Oh, wait. Wait, no, that can't be right. No, that's wrong. South Sudan, not Spain, not Spain. South Sudan, a very peaceful country, very peaceful, tranquil South Sudan. Suriname, Timor-Leste, Togo, Tuvalu, which is an island in the middle of nowhere. Uganda. Hey, Uganda. How about Vietnam? Actually, Vietnam's the best one on that list. Vietnam wins. If they're going to meet up, we've decided it here in the chat. We've decided. They got to meet up in Vietnam. They got to meet in Vietnam. That's the best country on that list. I love some pho. And do some pho mukbang. That's great. Down in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh or Da Nang. Da Nang's really popping right now. How about a Da Nang meetup? A Da Nang romance. Yeah. I think that would go well, guys. What do you guys think, chat? What do you think? North Korea is not on that list. Neither is Thailand, by the way. Neither is Thailand. Let's get some of these chats before we continue. Showgirl World, the pick of the decline of Italy from jail. I've already gotten that one up. There's another full video on that, so they can watch that. But Vitaly's not looking good. By the way, Snowcat Tish says 4 dislikes. Chantal Sala and 2 mods. No, it's Johnny, Hank, and then you know what? I think Foodie liked this video. I think Foodie liked this video. I think Foodie's gonna like this video. She's gonna enjoy this video. I'm giving her romantic tips. How could she dislike this video? I don't think that's possible. I think she loves this video. That's a secret here. I just gave her travel advice. Hexorcist says she's probably fleeing to Turkey, not the country, the food. Thor says, I respect you for answering hard questions. I always get to the hard questions. Thunder Rain 666 says, shout out Danielle. Every stream working hard. Danielle's my top mod. Thank you, Danielle, so much. Also, thank you to JP Ravenfire and all the other mods who are on the channel. I love you guys. But Danielle's a top mod. She does a great job. Love her. She's amazing. Puddingway says, Sala, this is your chance to lose 300 pounds. Big Buddha says, Josh, World of T-shirts, got the Gandalf treatment. You shall not pass. Yeah, he was not allowed into Dubai. And that was after he had a breakout, a kind of crash out in Japan, punching people, kicking people. Yeah. Thor said, what do you think of Sam Pepper? I think Sam Pepper has had some incidents where I think he may have crossed the line in the past, but I think Sam Pepper kind of knows better now. He was on the fence in China, but I think Sam Pepper is kind of learning and he's getting older. So hopefully he does learn. Friday Bruce Dreams for $7.99 says, does sending him, I'm not going to read that. Messages and prawn impact him in Kuwait. The texts are published with voice recording. Yes. Remember, countries can deny you for your just reputation and history. So if you're a vile individual, they can just rebuke you. And if you were somebody that was going against the culture of a country, yes, they can send you away. There's no absolute right to visit a country. So even like Vietnam, if Vietnam decided that they didn't like Chantal or Sala, they can bounce them at the border. That's up to Vietnam. Vietnam makes a decision. Not me, Vietnam. K-Bear says, would Canada revoke her passport if Kuwait makes a ruling? No, she's a citizen of Canada. So Canada would not necessarily revoke her passport. However, if they found it was a severe crime, they might. But here's the problem. That's not a crime in Canada. So I'm 99% sure that even if she's convicted in Kuwait, Canada's not going to revoke her passport. Also, like I said, one of my close friends is a member of I don't want to say her name or anything, but she works for the Canadian Embassy. She's a good friend of mine, a very good friend of mine. And Canada, I'm not trying to be down on Canada. This is Canada's way, how Canada does things. Canada's very nice, right? Canada's a nice country. They typically are very soft on revoking stuff. That's Canada's policy. They're very nice. In fact, one of their strategies is this is not a top secret, but whatever. If Canada has people they want to see punished, what they try to do is send them to the United States because the United States will punish criminals more severely than Canada. So they actually try to send their criminals to the United States to get actual punishment. I'm not kidding. That's really something that Canada does. Because they're just very light, and that's their culture in their country. And once again, I say this for every country. Look, I have my personal feelings about that, but it's up to each country and the citizens of the country to determine what the laws are. Laws are a reflection of our culture, of our voting, of everything else involved. So that is a reflection of the values that Canada values, right? If they want to have a different value, they have to change the culture, change the law, change the predominant way of thinking. Nick Cross says, I would assume that the ME inter-country agreement would mean he can't hide out in Qatar or Saudi. FYI, the last name. Okay, well, Last name is Gross, as in disgusting. Oh, okay. Nick Gross. Okay, cool. Yeah, I actually knew a girl whose name like Alexander Gross. She was just cool, but in German that just means big too, like gross, like sehr gross, right? It means big. So I don't necessarily mean it means, I think it means disgusting. Zadly gets sassy. Said Salam was denied a Canada visa twice. Then he's very unlikely to get granted it in the future. If they've already denied it twice, then he would need something above and beyond to get that visa. Alexis Artemis Green, how the first says, for the Somali prosecution team, nice work. Thank you. And if you want to support that team, go to Ko-Fi/Andrew Esquire to support what we do in covering nuisance streamers, whether it's Johnny Somali, Vitali, anybody else. Just help support the coverage. So that's Ko-Fi/Andrew Esquire. Jose Rodriguez says, Maldives is the Hawaii of the Arab world and they're visa free for everyone. Maldives is beautiful. Maldives is a beautiful country. If you have a chance to go to the Maldives, go to the Maldives. It's a beautiful country. I want to go there. I have many friends that have gone there and they've always had a good time. Lily for DKK 17 says, as a half Lao, no thanks to her in Vietnam. Well, listen, I need to go. Actually need to go to Lao. I've been meaning to schedule a trip to Winchet. But I love Lao food. I love Lao beer. Beer Lao's a great beer. So I got to check it out. Wobbles and Bean for 5 says, did we already discuss her deliberately smashing frogs in her car, dancing and singing along to school shooting and laughing at 9/11 victims? No, we haven't. That is not for today's episode. However, once I catch up on the lore in the background, I may do an assessment of past stuff. I think you guys were interested in that, and I may do that for everyone because I think everyone thought that would be entertaining and that would be useful. So I may do that in the future. Once I catch up, give me a couple weeks, guys. And there's a lot to catch up on. Thor says for 20, let's make live streaming great again. Banky said, golden showers help the cabbages grow. In case you guys don't know the inside joke, the yellow super chats, we try to get to hit the goal of 10. And that's what they call the golden shower there. So I think we hit it today. Also, that's a mindset mukbang. I'm going to have to do a mukbang on stream. I think I already owed chat one. But in honor of Foodie Beauty, I think I got to do a mukbang. Neko Girl says, God bless the goal. We hit it. Thank you, Neko Girl. And thank you all the guys that hit the goal with those yellow super chats, the golden chats. That KK said, could he get in trouble for cohabitating with a female that's not a relative spouse? I'm not familiar with Kuwaiti law, but if there's a law that way in Kuwait, maybe, but I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they would go too hard on that one, but I don't know. I'd have to check up on that. Okay. Here's the thing I'm interested in. Canada resuming the legal process. So many people have talked about her serving as a witness in a case and her having other cases. And I don't know. I haven't had enough time. And I know chat will educate me and the reaction channels and everybody else will educate me. But I know she may have some cases out there or other things she's involved in. If there's anything that was pending that she needed to be involved in, they can now find her and bring her in. Now, once again, Canada is not the toughest country on this. They're not the strictest country for people that don't show up to court or, they're called as a witness, they don't show up. They're not the toughest country. However, it is possible this can happen, and very much so that could if there's something out there. But the thing that was more interesting to me was bankruptcy, because people have mentioned that she'd had bankruptcies. And I'm not sure what the status of the bankruptcy is, but bankruptcy is very fascinating legally. Bankruptcy is where I think she could potentially get in a lot of trouble because bankruptcy pauses. If you leave the country and it was going, it's still out there. Now, bankruptcy doesn't require you to be in the country. A lot of people, they misunderstand. They think that bankruptcy requires you to be all the time in that country, and that's not true. However, it can sometimes require that you're still a resident of Canada, which means you're in Canada 6 months out of the year, at least 6 months and a day. So whether or not she violated that, I don't know. I didn't count all of her days there and see how long she was in Canada. If she had a bankruptcy pending and she wasn't a resident, that might be a problem. The other thing with bankruptcy, and this is a thing I don't know, which is bankruptcy has mandatory meetings. They're often called meetings of the creditor, or sometimes they're just meetings with a judge. You have to physically be there for that. So I'm not aware, and I don't know, I haven't looked into her bankruptcy court file, but did she miss any meetings in Canada. If she had a bankruptcy and there were meetings where she had to be there, legally had to physically be there, her body had to be there at that meeting, did she miss any? If she missed any, there could be a default, there could be collections, there could be all sorts of things that go down if she missed those meetings. So I don't know what that status is. So I think the most dangerous thing for her coming back is actually anything related to bankruptcy. So I think the consequence for her in Canada, if there's a bankruptcy ongoing, if there's some sort of, credit proceedings, that might be a big issue for Foodie. So that is the consequence. I think the two most severe things are obvious, or the three are being blacklisted. That probably can happen. Sala being hassled and her being hounded for stuff related to bankruptcy. I think that would be an absolute problem for her. And I think that might cause some grief for her. So that's my thoughts on the consequences there. Let me get these chats. Insolent violence at risk is also the government might want to make an example of someone out of principle. That's true, but Canada won't do that. Kuwait maybe, and you're making a better argument here, but I'm not believing based on everything I know about Canada, and shout out to all the other good Canadian lawyers. There's tons of good Canadian lawyers out there, but Canada is not a make example out of people country generally. Now, judges are different. You could get a really hard ass judge, and I'll have to put in some money in the swear jar, but you can get a tough judge, and a tough judge on a bad day could be mean. That's possible. But generally, it's not a place where they crack down on people for minor procedural errors. Right. And oftentimes they're looked past in a larger context. But I don't know how much she's violated anything or not. I don't know whether she's even violated anything. I'm not saying whether she has. I'm just asking questions. I'm a humble, simple Florida lawyer in Asia asking questions of Girl World. Gigi says, welcome to Girl World. Everyone's playing nice. Everyone's been nice so far. Everyone's been awesome. And by the way, if you're enjoying this content, there's almost 4,000 of you here. Please like this video. If you guys enjoy my coverage, my style of coverage, I like to know. I like to get feedback, what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. It really helps me a lot. Jose says, I wish I was in Morocco. I could donate in MAD. That'd be cool. I like seeing the other foreign currencies. Fallen Angel 6969 for 10 says, so going off of the fruit farms, not always trustworthy. There are rumors that her trustees have dropped her due to non-payment. I'm not familiar with Canadian bankruptcy. Well, that's why I often say I don't know, because just because I can't cite I saw it on the farms as a reference legally, right? So while I can read that, and certainly in this case I did, and once again, I read back more than 5 pages, I have to see that backed up. I have to see the evidence for that. I have to see it match up. So I can present stuff as a theory, and that's fine. A theory is fine, but stating it as fact is something different. And I try to stay away from defamation. I try not to defame others, and I try to give people, even Foodie, the benefit of the doubt. Even today, I asked the chat, do you think she's smart, or do you think she's, accidentally smart? Whatever. I try to give it the benefit of the doubt. I try to entertain both sides, the haters and the lovers. Nick Gross says, I'm curious as to what consequences for her fleeing the country with an active apartment lease and nothing. So here's what happens when that happens. If you have a lease, you probably give up your deposit. That happens all the time. And that happens here in Thailand where I'm at. I've seen that happen in the Philippines. It's happened in Japan and Korea. I had a best friend in the Philippines. He left and he gave up 2 months rent, because in the Philippines, they keep 2 months rent. So he gave up about $2,000, in his security deposit, and just gave it up. He just like, yeah, I'm going to write it off. Right. And the car payments, they'll probably just take the car. Now, if there was fraud involved, maybe that would be more serious, but I would need to look into the details there. Once again, I don't know. I need more facts on that, but that could be something. But apartments, that's generally something between person and person. So that's a civil matter, not a criminal matter. So for civil matters, typically that's not something that's going to get you thrown in jail. Right? That's something that's going to piss someone off. The landlord's going to be mad, but that is the risk of being a landlord, is that your tenant is somebody who flees. That's why it's important to screen your tenants. And as a landlord, you must screen your tenants. It's your job. That's why your landlord hassles you, because they want to make sure you're not going to flee and you're going to pay, because they want you to pay. They don't want you to flee. Smeagol says, wouldn't what she did be considered fraud? That's too broad of a question. What do you mean exactly? We need more proof to see whether it's conclusively that. And even then, in what jurisdiction? In Kuwait? Okay, well, what is Kuwait going to do? Even if it was fraud, they still probably would not extradite her. That's something I'm giving a less than 1% chance, almost 0% chance. Hit Advance 101 says, not sure if it's been said yet, but I want to know more about Foodie. Check out Repsian. He's done several divas. Cool. Well, that's awesome. Well, like I said, I'm going to finish this Mr. Snowflake documentary. I'm only like a couple minutes into this, but I'm going to get into that and finish it. Also, Robert Von Peak dropped 5 Legal Mindset memberships. Thank you so much.
Emotional damage.
All the haters getting emotional damage today. But guys, I've had a lovely time with you this evening. I'm going to send you off to a Fast Facts version, which is a shorter video. If you enjoy this, hit the like button. I'll catch you next time. And you know, all the haters are...
You are coping the seething. You just can't believe what you're seeing. It's you coping the seething. The truth it is all day, and now you are molding. You're coping so hard. Coping, you're seething. Coping, you're seething.